All right, so we got Matt Walsh here. He's a face I recognize. I've seen clips of him. I've seen things he said before, and I agree and disagree with some of his takes, not all of them. But he seems like a kind of like a how do I say this? He's definitely conservative, right? And there ain't nothing wrong with that. I'm more right leaning anyways. I'm more right leaning myself anyways. But I don't know. He said some things I agree with, those agree, but apparently he's pissed off all the gamers. I can see so many people hate this fucking guy for this video, right? The video game, like people were hating on this dude, right? Now, before I even watch the video, I'm gonna take a wild guess and just assume that it's him saying video games are bad, even though he's never played video games, and then he's gonna be like, "Oh, I saw this one video game that did this, so that means all the games are this bad, which means video games is bad for you." Blah blah blah. I'm assuming that's what's gonna happen, right? But I don't know because it might be the same old thing. Where it's just an old dude, new technology, doesn't understand technology, so he thinks the technology is a spawn of Satan himself. That's just what I'm good. This is what I'm assuming is happening right now. But we shall see. We shall see. I shall hold judgment as if I'm God. I'm just saying. I will. I'll watch the
So
video.
here's
That's
a
basically what I'm saying.
statistic that, at least if you were born at any point prior to the 1990s, might be hard to believe. By revenue, the gaming industry is bigger than both the movie industry and the music industry combined. And for
I mean, I think that's been a thing for like what the last decade. Like the gaming industry is fucking massive. The gaming industry is like it's weird. Despite the fact that the gaming industry is like so fucking massive, no one acknowledges or even wants to admit that games are just bigger than everything else. Games are just bigger. Games are bigger than movies. Games are bigger than fucking like A-list celebrities. And you wanna know why? It's because video games have both. They have the narratives of movies and they have their own songs, which I'm gonna be real. Video game music is just better than mainstream songs. I'm gonna keep it 1,000%. I like, call me a fucking loser, call me a fuck, I don't care. Video game music is just way better, way fucking better than anything that was released in the last like what 2 years. You could not convince me that bury the light fucking I am the storm that is approaching is not better than fucking whatever Ice Spice release. Like, you cannot tell me whatever Ice Spice release is better than Bury the Light. You cannot convince me otherwise. Like, video game music is just so much better. But anyways,
the past several years, it hasn't been especially close. The difference is consistently more than $100 billion per year. So video games are a massive market, one that's mostly targeted at young people, of course. But despite those numbers, for the most part, the games industry has avoided
strike one. Massively targeted to young people. Okay. Let's dissect that for a second. All right. Let's dissect, because everybody with an IQ above 30 can understand that that's just fucking wrong. Let's dissect this for a second. He just said that it's an industry that is massively bigger than the movie and music industry combined. How is that possible? If the demographic for if what he says is true, if the targeted demographic for video games is the minority of people who can afford, which is young people who can't afford to even buy video games, how does that economically make sense? Like, oh my god, this is 30 seconds in, and I can already tell this is gonna be the same old shit with like fucking old ass dudes say, oh, we have this new phone, new technology, I don't understand it, so that must mean it brainwashes kids to kill people. Like, oh my god. All right. But that's just, it is what it is. Because I hate it when people say this. They're like, video games are targeted for little kids. Really? Do you think Bethesda, when they were making Doom Eternal, they're thinking, oh yeah, the 13-year-olds are gonna love this shit? You really think that? Like, I don't know. Okay, I went off a tangent.
mainstream scrutiny. You'll see far more discussion about, say, Sydney Sweeney or Taylor Swift than you'll ever see about prominent video game voice actors and directors who pretty much no one knows anything about. Everyone's heard of Lionsgate or Paramount, but almost no one's heard of studios like Don't Nod Entertainment, for example. And that's
mainly because there's still kind of a stigma around video games. Like, It's not as bad as it was like 20 years ago, but there's still kind of a stigma around video games. People don't want to admit that they play video games, a lot because they'll be looked at as like, oh, you're a loser. Meanwhile, video games is just bigger in every way, shape, or form. Video games is like the biggest form of entertainment to date. Movies and music cannot keep up. Video games are just better in every way, but nobody wants to admit that they play video games a lot because there's still kind of a stigma around being a gamer. You know what I mean?
Significant because these no-name studios are behind the single most coordinated effort to indoctrinate millions of children through entertainment that's ever occurred in this country.
Oh my God, Strike 2. What the fuck? Indoctrinate? What, you think video games is like a fucking cult? Is Don't Nod a fucking cult? They're trying to indoctrinate little kids and brainwash them? Like, okay. Oh my God, just from the wording he's using, I can easily tell. This is... Alright.
This effort is maybe more powerful than the teachers' unions, if only because these propagandists mostly work in secret. Even if you homeschool your children, they're not immune to it. You might have heard something about one of the companies behind this indoctrination effort called Sweet Baby Inc. or SBI. And in a moment, I'll get into the details about what exactly that.
I've actually not heard. Who the fuck are they? Am I an ignorant idiot? Who the fuck is Sweet Baby Inc? I've never heard of them. I've never heard of them. But okay. I'll let him cook. I don't know who the fuck that is, but I'll let him cook.
That organization is doing and who's helping them do it. But first, I want to get the good news out of the way, which is that if there's any silver lining, it's that this effort to indoctrinate children is incredibly ham-fisted. Some of the dumbest people in the world are behind it. So take that studio I just mentioned, Don't Nod Entertainment. They're behind the very popular Life is Strange video game series, which has been played by tens of millions of people. And to give you an idea of how overt the propaganda is in Life is Strange, here's just one mercifully short sequence involving, what else? A racist white guy. There's some backstory about how he kidnapped an innocent Hispanic kid or something.
Okay, before he gets to that, was Life is Strange ever like I understand it's popular, but I don't think was Life is Strange even liked? And he said there's some racist white dude, which I don't was that. I think he's talking about Life is Strange 2 because I don't remember some racist white dude in Life is Strange 1, but was Life is Strange like I remember Life is Strange 2 was like hated, wasn't it? Like nobody liked it. Like it was popular because it bandwagoned off the name brand, but I don't think people liked Life is Strange 2. So I don't think that's a good game to use as a reference, but whatever.
And then this, watch.
Gonna tell the police you kidnapped me.
Nice try. But I know who you are and what you did in Seattle. I saw it in the paper.
And his name is Hank.
I should call ICE to make sure you're a citizen.
You hillbilly. I'm American.
Damn.
Watch it, punk.
Whatever. You're going to jail for this.
Pretty sure the local police will vouch for me over a thug like you.
Where's my brother?
Wish I knew. Little took off. I'll find him. Don't worry.
If you touch him...
You think I'd hurt a little boy? Guess you didn't have any second thoughts about leading him out into the middle of nowhere, though. That's real safe for a little kid. If he's lucky, he won't end up like his criminal big brother.
Just let me go. Please.
You're the reason we need to build that wall. You hold tight.
Yeah, you damn Mexicans over here stealing our jobs. Need to go over there and go across that wall. We're gonna build that wall. Oh man, doesn't help the fact that his name is Hank. All right, well, first off, let's start with this. Why is it bad? Why is it a bad thing that a bad guy is doing bad things in a video game? Like he's clear, like this Hank dude in Life is Strange 2 is clearly an antagonist. So why is it bad that this antagonist is racist? I don't understand. How's that propaganda? How's that indoctrination? Like here's the thing, right? there's nothing wrong with making antagonists do bad things, but apparently if you make them do certain bad things, then it's a political thing. How about no? They just made the guy racist because it was the perfect antagonist for a Mexican dude trying to go across the country. How is that? It has nothing to do with propaganda or indoctrination. They just made a racist character to fit the narrative. How about that? Like, what the fuck? There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Why is it bad to make an antagonist in a video game do bad things? And even then, I don't even think he's fully racist. Because in the very clip that he showed, he was like, yeah, I don't care about your little brother. I'm not gonna hurt him, and hopefully he doesn't do dumb shit like you. And he kind of had a point. He kind of had a point. He was leading his brother cross country doing dumb shit. And, now his brother was like out in the woods alone. So, he kind of, racist dude kind of had a point, but, it is what it is. But like, it's just the wording he's using is clearly just some dude just doom posting, like an old guy doom posting without knowing that he's doom posting because he doesn't actually understand video games.
Now, I guess I lied. I said that it was mercifully short, but that felt like 3 hours long. And I will say also
no,
that,
it didn't.
This is...
Don't lie to yourself. No, it didn't.
Neither here nor there. Well, maybe it's not, but, when I... obviously, I don't pay much attention to video games. When I started looking into the story we're talking about now and watching some of these videos, I was... Like, I sort of expected the graphics and just the overall quality to be better now and than it is, because...
First off, this game is like, what, 10 years old? Let's start with that. First off, this game is like almost a decade old, maybe older. I don't remember when Life is Strange came out. Actually, let's fucking look it up. This game came out. Yeah, this game came out 6 years ago. Well, I guess 5, a little 5 and some change. This game came out 5 years ago. Like, let's keep it real. and let's be real. Clearly, graphic fidelity wasn't their aim with this game. Like, I'm not saying the game was good, but let's keep, like, graphic fidelity clearly wasn't their preferred choice for how they're going to display the game. They went for art style instead of graphic fidelity because let's be real, graphic fidelity isn't as like, there's a trend going on with video games where they'll choose art style or graphic fidelity, which is something I completely agree with. Graphic fidelity, you can only do so much with that. And honestly, I think it costs more to push out the most graphically intense video game ever than just do a different art style that will stand the test of time. But yeah, it's very clear that they went for art style instead of graphic fidelity. And this guy's like, the graphics don't look that good. I'm just like, oh my God.
It's really low quality all around. But he says, we need to build a wall. That's according to the white racist kidnapping the innocent Hispanic boy. And this is a game that, if Wikipedia is to be believed, received generally positive reviews upon release. Critics praised the story.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Wikipedia was like the worst thing to use as a reference. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like I've heard so many times that Wikipedia is like the worst thing to use as a reference because you don't actually know if it's true or not because people can just change it. But once again, let it go.
So we can conclude that the bar is incredibly low in this entire industry. All that developers have to do is beat their audience over the head with rote left-wing propaganda, and their game will be well-reviewed.
Oh my God.
And well.
Okay. I know I'm stopping a lot, but it's just I'm trying to dissect this bit by bit, and it's like he keeps saying one thing after another that it just shows his level of not knowing what the game industry, right? And he's passing judgments on it. He's saying the bar is this low for video games in general. I'm just like, first off, I don't know how much research you did, but this game was not liked by the public. Sure, the critics may have wrote it like 10 out of 10, but if you looked at what the public viewed, Life is Strange was not that good. Like, a lot of people did not like Life is Strange 2. From what I remember, this game was not that popular. Like, a lot of people didn't like it, from what I remember, right? But the critics said it was good because it was very, LGBT friendly. It was very, woke, right? It was very woke, but a lot of people didn't like that. Like, a lot of people did, well, not the fact that it was woke, but they just didn't like the game, right? So if I use his logic, right? If I use his logic and said, oh, Life is Strange 2 is the standard for video games and the standard is so low, me using his logic, I could basically say that the movie industry standard is so fucking low and trash because the emoji movie exists. Right? That's like if I said the emoji movie is trash, so that means the movie industry as a whole is trash. Because that one movie was garbage. You know what I mean? It's like he's making general statements on a subject that he's clearly not that informed on, and it's just that's what's pissing people off. Because it's the same reiterated garbage from all these old people. They don't play video games. They don't understand it. They don't understand the industry, and they say it's the spawn of Satan. It's the same thing over and over again.
Well received. The more recent game, Suicide Squad, is another prominent example. They decided to write a story about
This guy's just
Batman's
using
toxic
all the
masculinity, which
worst game.
ended
Bro,
with
everybody
a girl
hated
boss
this game.
shooting Batman.
Suicide Squad.
Spoiler, apologize for that. Should have
This
warned you.
guy's just using all
Anyway,
the
here's
worst games as a
part of
reference.
that
This guy's using Suicide. I swear everybody hated the fuck out of this game.
You had a good run, Brucey. Flying
Like,
around
nobody
Gotham,
liked this game.
punching bad guys, clean up the streets,
Like,
causing
this game did
long-term
horribly.
mental and
Nobody liked this
emotional
fucking game.
damage to everyone you knew. It's our turn now. After all we've been through. Oh. Bet you didn't think it'd be me at the end, huh, Bets?
Are we done with your bad stand-up routine?
Almost. But you always gotta end on your best joke.
Yeah, that's I
Damn,
can't watch it.
they got Batman in that game. No wonder everybody hated that game.
Okay, well, you can imagine just how many purple-haired women must work at that studio. I mean, they probably provide the hair dye on tap in their
Okay, one thing I will agree with him on. One thing I will actually agree with him on is the amount of like wokeness people are trying to shove down our throats in the video games and like girl boss that they're trying to shove in the video game is actually kind of annoying. It's actually annoying. Like, cause here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with having a badass female. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong. I play Honkai Star Rail. I play Genshin, which is quite literally a waifu collector. I don't care about badass women in video games. I like let it. It's fine, but make it make sense. Don't just make like a character who's clearly just gay for the sake of being gay. You know what I mean? Have a narrative behind it. Make it interesting. Don't just shove it down our throats because you're forced to do it, right? It's like if it doesn't make sense in the narrative, then it's an issue, right? I'll give you a perfect example. I'll give you a perfect example. Nier Automata. That game is nearly an all women cast. I think there's literally only one dude in that entire game. I think like 9S. I think 9S is quite literally the only guy in that entire game. It's like a whole female cast, and it's one of my favorite games of all time because the narrative is just that good. The story behind Nier Automata is that good. I don't care that 99% of the cast in that game are all female, but the story is just really fucking good. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you can have a woman that kicks ass. That's fine, but don't shove this whole propaganda left wing "I don't need a man" bullshit down our throats. That's what gets annoying, right? That's why Captain Marvel, the first movie, everybody fucking hated it because it was just because it felt like they made her badass to put men down, to be like, oh, she's a strong, independent woman. She doesn't need men. And I'm just like, there's nothing wrong with being strong but needing somebody. You know what I mean? It just felt like, oh. It's like it's just make a strong female character without having to shit on, like, without having to be like push some kind of agenda. That's basically all I'm saying, right? Just make a strong character and don't push an agenda. That's basically all I'm trying to say.
company. Now, I didn't play that game, obviously. I haven't played any of these games. I'm not a video game fan or player, as most people I think know by now. But the point is that these clips were all over the internet because of how awful they are. They're just terrible in every way, even just from a quality perspective. Again, they're bad, even if you happen to agree with their politics. But the fact remains that for children of a certain age, the propaganda doesn't need to be subtle. All they got to do is present it to children, and it can be effective. And that's why some anonymous people using the games platform Steam.
But here's the thing, they're not developing this game in mind with children as their target demographic. That's the thing. That's the issue. That's the reason why your point is mute and valid, because their target demographic is not children. The game is rated like, what, M for mature? I'm assuming because of the blood and the fact that they blew Batman's brains all over the fucking screen. Like, it's rated M for mature. The target demographic is not children. That's the reason why your point is mute, because the problem is, the reason why children get their hands on these games is because the dumbasses, right, the single moms who watch your videos don't look at the rating of the video game that's plastered on the box, and they buy their 6-year-old kid GTA 5, and then they're shocked that an R-rated game has R-rated content, and they're like, oh, this video game is targeting my children. No, it's not. You're just the dumbass that bought it for them. Like, it's the same thing. Why would they target a demographic that isn't old enough to buy their stuff? That makes no sense. Like, think about it logically from a business standpoint. Why would you make a product and target a demographic that isn't old enough to buy their product? That makes no sense. Like, that's why his point is like, it's so like, oh my god.
Decided to figure out exactly who's putting this garbage in games and why. They found that the company I mentioned earlier, called Sweet Baby Inc.
Yeah, now this is interesting because I don't know
I
who
have
the
to say,
fuck
no
these
relation
are.
to the Sweet Baby Gang. I swear
So,
off any
who knows?
association.
I
I
might
would file a lawsuit for copyright infringement.
with this whole
if not
Sweet
for the
Baby
fact that
thing.
don't
I
have a
might be on his
copyright,
side.
and
I
also
have no
Sweet
idea who
Baby
these
Inc.
fucking people are.
Existed first, technically, but never mind that. Anyway, these people on Steam found that Sweet Baby Inc. has contracted with major publishers to push the principles of DEI in video games as aggressively as possible. Sweet Baby Inc., or SBI, worked with the developers of the game I just showed you, Suicide Squad, and they've also had a role in several other major releases recently. On their website, SBI boasts that they're committed to installing principles of diversity into games, and they do it forcibly. In fact, the founder and CEO of SBI, a woman named Kim Belair, recently spoke to game developers and instructed them to threaten their companies unless they comply with Sweet Baby's DEI mandates. Watch.
And if you're in development and you
They're
are part of
like
like that
threatening
dominant
people to be
voice,
like,
you're
make our
like
game
a
woke.
cis hetero white dude or just
Oh
adjacent
my
to
god.
that,
Oh god.
do not wait until the end to call your consultant.
This was at
Bring
GDC
them in at the
too.
beginning, and
Oh,
instead
God.
of asking them, hey,
How did I not
is
know
this
about
very
this?
racist
This was
thing
at
we did
GDC.
very
How do I not
racist,
know this?
or is this
How have I never heard of these
deeply
people?
offensive thing we did deeply offensive? Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Like, ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
Okay, I can already see that Matt and I are probably gonna agree. I'm probably gonna agree with him on this when it comes to Sweet Baby Inc. All right, this is something I don't like when it comes to not just video games in general, just entertainment in general. Here's the thing that people don't understand. If the narrative is good, no one's gonna fucking care about who is what race. No one's gonna care about the gender. No one's gonna care about the race. No one's gonna care about any of that shit if the narrative is good. No one will fucking care. No one. Once again, let's Nier Automata. Once again, one of my favorite games of all time. Not once, not for a single second while I was playing that game did I think this game would be a lot better if they had a black woman in there. Not once. The game, it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. If the only reason why race or gender would matter is if it's somehow intertwined in the narrative in some way, shape, or form. Like if for some reason in the narrative it's important that this person is a woman, then it's like, okay, make her a woman. Make it then that would make no sense narratively. Then make that character a woman. But like, if it doesn't matter, if it has no effect on the narrative, if the person is male or female, then who fucking cares? If it doesn't matter to the narrative, if the person is white, black, Asian, then who fucking cares? It doesn't matter. As long as the narrative is good and the story is good and it makes sense and it's cohesive, no one will give a fuck. No one will care. That's like one of the things I hate about this woke shit. Like I don't care if my character, if the main protagonist of my video game is a trans woman, is a trans black woman. I don't care, as long as this narrative is good. As long as the narrative is good and it makes sense in the narrative to make her trans, that's fine. I don't care. Even if it doesn't make sense, even if it's like not important that to the narrative that this person's trans, just don't shove it down my, because then it's gonna feel disingenuous. Because like if it's not important to the narrative, why are you telling me this information? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? It's the same thing. Like, oh my god.
So this is how DEI works in every industry, of course. The goal is not to improve the company's product in any way. It's to blackmail companies and threaten them into submission. And in this case, they're just saying it out loud. Pay the DEI tax or we will destroy you. Only in the games industry, where everyone is dumber than they are in every other industry, do they just come right out and say it as directly as that. Along these lines, as you might have guessed, so-called games journalists are somehow even dumber than journalists in other industries too, which...
Honestly, I agree with Matt. I agree with him there. Games journalists are fucking idiots sometimes. I'm gonna keep it real. Game journalist. Anybody who's seen a game journalist play video games, that were like, how the fuck are you a journalist if you suck this much at video games in general? Game journalists are fucking trash sometimes. That's why there's only like, I think there's only like 2 games journalists that are actually respected in the gaming industry, and that's fuck, I forgot his name. He was on Twitter. It was like Schreider or something Schreider. But he was like the only games journalist that's actually like respected and had like people say he has integrity in the gaming industry. He's like the only game journalist that people actually like genuinely respect. Other than that dude, nobody likes gaming journalists. Nobody, not a single soul likes gaming journalists. So I have to agree with him there.
I mean, is really, really saying something. They're just completely unable to hide their real goals or display any hint of subtlety whatsoever. For example, in response to clips like this surfacing, games writers have produced several articles portraying SBI as the victim of a harassment campaign, by which they mean people are noticing what SBI is doing. And we know that on the left, the worst thing you can ever do is just notice. Noticing is the greatest crime of all. I'm here today because my mother chose life, and you're here today because your mother chose life too. The miracle of life is a gift everyone deserves.
Isn't that
every life is precious. That's why we've partnered with Preborn's network of clinics.
Okay.
Preborn introduces,
I mean, I'm pro-life too, but I'm not here to watch this.
Their donation will save babies. Affordable. Visit gcu.edu. Right out and demand that your world, these clowns would have people who are concerned about SBI. Quote, for example, here's how a writer for the website Polygon, Joshua Rivera, has responded to people who are concerned about SBI. Quote, he says, quote, in a just world, these clowns would have their Steam accounts turned off, their PlayStations bricked, and get booted from any respectable social platform. So in the games industry, the journalists just come right out and demand that you're deleted from the internet if you dare to look deeper into their narrative or to question anything they say. So let's look deeper into the narrative in that case. In a recent podcast, Kim Blair explains that her company's mandate is to make every game political. There has to be diverse representation in all contexts.
And I hate that, because why do video games need to be political at all? Why do video games need to be political at all? Bro, I play games about fighting dragons. Why does that need to be political? I play games like fucking. Why do you need to make it political at all? That makes no sense. You think people who are playing Sekiro are like, oh my god, we need to push some leftist concepts and agendas in this game? Like, why? What is that? That's like if I played Dark Souls and we're like, and then we end up killing like some pregnant demon and we're like, oh my god, this is, and then they're like, oh, this is some propaganda for pro-choice, isn't it? It's like, what? Who cares about making it political? They're video games. We play video games to forget the outside world and live in a fantasy world for like an hour or 2 hours, like whenever we get the chance. Why do we need to put politics in video games? Like, I hate that. Just make a video game with a good story. No one will care about the wokeness. I promise you. It's the case every single time.
Even in, say, World War I. Watch.
A lot of the time,
that kind of sensitivity work results in, cuts of certain things or slight changes.
Oh God,
But
Sister
what I
speaks.
prefer to do, and I don't really call it sensitivity reading, but I think of it as just, bringing representation to.
You know, all jokes aside, I feel like using a snake as like your emblem, as like your as like your what the fuck word I'm trying to think of. Like just using a snake as your fucking emblem. I don't think that's a good choice. Because then people are going to use that against you in every way, shape, or form. Why the hell would you use a snake? Why not just get rid of the snake and just keep the triangle gold thing? Why use the snake? What's the point of the snake? You know what I mean? But anyways, this Kim Belair person, this person is reminding me so much of Anita Sarkeesian. Remember like 10 years ago, like Anita Sarkeesian was like everywhere because of her fucking horrid takes on video games and like sexuality in video games. Like nobody fucking liked that woman. She was hated on all fronts. She's giving me, the Kim Belair is reminding me of her. I don't like it.
Something is trying to build a narrative and a story that include moments and elements custom made to bring representation and joy to people, because that's kind of where Sweet Baby lands on it. And I think it's the same way when we put diversity into the past. People go, oh no, but you're just putting diversity in. They don't even feel ready because they've been exposed to so much, whether it's whitewashed, whether it's just colonized media, that they go, oh, there can't possibly have been diversity back then, because my understanding of it was that this was a homogenous time.
See, this is the issue. Whitewashing. First off, I don't like using that term whitewash. I find it so stupid. First off, it doesn't matter. Like because this is the issue. You're taking characters from the past that are already established and just changing their race for the sake of changing their race. You can't give an explanation to say that's not what you're doing. You're changing the race of a character that was already established, because you can't make a new character that is as good as that established character and then just make that character black or whatever. It's like, why make Ariel, who's already established to be like a white girl, and then make her black instead of just making a new Disney princess who's black? Oh wait, they did do that. And she was like one of the worst selling, she's like one of the most unknown Disney princesses. Fucking I forgot her name, but anyways, like it's just make a new character that is as diverse as you want it to be. Why take an old character and then fucking just diversify them for the sake of diversifying? Just make a new character and then make them whatever ethnicity you want to make them. Like that's the issue. No one cares about the fact that you want to put a diverse character in a game. It's the method that you're doing it. Just make a new character. Design a new character that's black, and then do whatever you want with that character. But when you take an established character that is already like established to be white, Asian, black, or whatever, and then you change the race of that person, it's clearly just doing it for the sake of doing it. That's the annoying thing.
And so I think I look at it like that.
Or they make excuses for it, like, yeah, well, sure. Okay, maybe there were some women in World War I that were on the front lines, but it was only in these specific situations, so we shouldn't show it in the game.
Exactly. You have so much of that happening, and
they make a game that shows the situations where women were in World War I. Why take an established game why take a game that's already established in World War I, and then they use those scenes that are depicted to show only men? And then just stick a woman in there for the sake of sticking a woman there, when you could just create a new narrative that has a woman in World War I, and then just use that and then run with that. If that's the case, make a new narrative that details women and their struggles in World War I. Do that. Like, I don't understand why that can't click in their heads.
For me, there's so many leaps that we already take with history. There are so many things that we decide are true, and so many of the protagonists that we choose for our games are exceptional by their nature. So why not take that further?
So SBI wants to, quote, build a narrative and a story that includes moments and elements custom made to bring representation and joy to people. And she uses the example of World War I. Well, if you're familiar with the history at all, there were not a lot of women fighting on the front lines of World War I, but they shoehorn that into their game anyway, because at every possible opportunity, they need to minimize and demonize white men. White men cannot be the hero of anything, even historical events where they were the heroes.
Yeah, you know what? I have to agree with him there. This might be a hot take coming from a black dude, but yeah, you can't be a white dude and not be judged for everything you do. It's actually really bad. You cannot be a white dude on Twitter and not be hated for simply existing. It's actually really fucking bad. like let's be real. The most hated race on Twitter is the white dudes. Let's keep it 100%. Holy fuck. They're the white dudes are the most marginalized community in Twitter.
Like World War I and many other historical events, by the way. White men have been the heroes of many historical events. But, you know, that can't be allowed to happen in games because they have to attack white men whenever possible. We're seeing this at all levels in the gaming industry. Here, for example, is Danny Lalanders. She worked, reportedly used to work at Sweet Baby Inc. just a year ago, and now she works for a studio at EA, one of the biggest game studios on the planet. And watch as she explains
one of the most hated
why
too.
she doesn't hire white people on her team, because apparently they commit all kinds of microaggressions. Watch.
I have a team of 21 right now for Validate. It's a pretty big team. It's a crazy big team for indie games.
Now imagine if a white woman made a video talking about how I'll never hire a black person on my team. This is what I mean when I say white dudes. White dudes got a rough. White dudes got a real rough. I'm gonna keep it real.
But who is your team? Validate has a team of mostly all people of color. We have no white people on our team. I did that because I wanted to create a safe environment. And I know the best way for an environment to be safe is to be around people who are just like me.
So you basically hired an echo chamber, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with hiring people that you want to feel safe around, but you can't just say you can't say that you're less likely to be safe around a white dude just because he's white. That makes no sense. That's quite literally the same thing as a white dude saying he can't be safe around a black person because they're black. It's just as bad. It makes no sense. There's no logic behind it. You're just doing that for the sake of doing that. There's no logic behind it.
I'm not saying that white people in the industry are creating unsafe environments.
You quite literally just said that by saying you don't hire white people to make safe environments. He quite literally just said that.
I'm not saying that. That is not what I'm saying. I am saying that sometimes it is hard to work with white people because they think that something may be okay, but it was really a microaggression. And no one wants to deal with that while they're trying to make a game that they love.
Okay, and sometimes it's hard to work with women because they're more likely to have a mental breakdown if shit starts to get hard. Doesn't mean you should stop hiring women. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's hard to work with men because they'll do stupid shit and fuck up and be aggressive when shit hits the fan. It doesn't mean you should just not hire men. It's like it's a horrible. It's logic that doesn't make sense, but you make it make sense to yourself. So you just there's no logic behind it. You just say something and it sounds right to you, so you just run with it. But it's not. There's no logic behind it because you just said I'm not saying white people do not create unsafe environments, but you quite literally just said that by saying I don't hire white people to create a safe environment. Like what the fuck?
Now notice that she doesn't say what the microaggressions were that these terrible white people committed. We can imagine maybe those nasty white people said something nice about her hair. Maybe they asked where she was from. Maybe they said, hey, cut that line of dialogue about building the wall. It's a little too on the nose. Who knows? You know, in any event, this is an employee of a major game studio straight up admitting that she doesn't hire white people. And that's not just unethical, it's illegal. Okay, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah,
it's the kind of thing that's usually left unsaid in major corporations, but it's standard practice in the games industry to just come right out and announce it. Because you know, this is what makes people of color safe, which, by the way, every time this comes up that people of color, quote unquote, people of color are unsafe against white people when they're around white people. On top of everything else, it's just like factually, that's completely wrong. A black person statistically is much more likely to commit an act of violence against a white person than the other way. And that's just, there's no getting around it. It's just a fact. But to give another example, also in response to the SBI story, a senior editor at the gaming site Kotaku wrote, quote, "Hi, you can't be racist against white people. Thanks for tuning in." Now, the people writing this garbage are true believers. They are the low IQ foot soldiers. But the reason they're so well-funded is more interesting. As the former games executive Mark Kern explained this week, the cost of producing games is extremely high. It's higher than it's ever been, in fact. So game studios are looking to raise money in any way possible. And one way to get a lot of money is through ESG financing. Watch.
It's not that gamers are, upset about, oh, hey, we have some diversity in the game. It's actually the way that they go about it with pure
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
In weak characters.
Nobody cares about
strong
the
new characters.
diverse characters themselves. It's the way they shove it down our throats.
It's about a vindictiveness to destroy the past, to destroy the IP, to ignore the source.
I just read that. I just read that review. What the fuck? I have less shame in admitting to owning porn games than I do with this game. What the fuck? That's the best review I've ever read. I just read that. I was looking at these dudes and I just saw this. That's the best review I've ever seen. What game is he talking about? I have to know. What game is he talking about? Is it Suicide Squad? It has to be Suicide Squad. Is it? I don't know. Maybe, yeah, it's Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad. I think it's Suicide Squad. Oh, that's the best review I've ever seen.
And to tear apart these beloved characters in some sort of fitful rage that we don't understand and is very disingenuous. And I think that is the tremendous reaction to Suicide Squad. And this is going to have an immense financial impact. The way games are funded, you don't use your own money. Even EA, okay? Games are hugely expensive to make. They're upwards of $250, sometimes $600 million.
Yeah, games are very expensive to make.
It's incredibly how expensive they are. And
that's why right now the best way to go. Right now, indie games are popping off. Indie games are popping off because right now games are so expensive to make that the returns on it are so minimal that it's actually not worth creating a very expansive game because of how much cost it takes to make that game. That's why a lot of times we'll see games, even though we constantly complain about, games like Diablo Immortal or like, even Genshin. I shit on Genshin all the time where there's clearly little investment in the game, but they're reaping so much rewards. The reason why they do that is because they can. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you invest in a game. It's what people are willing to pay for. It doesn't matter if the game is good. It's what are people gonna spend their money on. And statistics show people will spend money even if the game is complete dog shit. They will spend money on the game if they feel some type of way towards it. Like Diablo Immortal. Diablo Immortal is objectively a shit game. It's objectively a shit game, but it makes millions of dollars. I think I don't know about now, but the last time I saw a review, an article about the game, it made like $1 million a day. And it made so much fucking money because it doesn't matter the investment. It doesn't matter how good the game is. It's what are people gonna spend their money on, right? And that's why even Genshin, I shit on Genshin all the time, but it doesn't matter if Genshin is good or not. People are going to spend their money on big-titted anime waifus. That's what they're going to spend their money on. So they don't care if the game is good or not. They don't care if there's investment in the game. That's why most companies, especially AAA companies, they don't make good games to make good games. They make games to make money. That's the way it goes. Lowest investment possible with highest rewards or highest returns. Because games are just way too expensive to make. That's why a lot of people are just going indie instead of just trying to join a AAA company. They're just saying, I'd rather go indie and take a chance on that.
And to do that, your CFO is your best friend. you're counting on your CFO to get you tax breaks, to get you in, to put studios in regions which are financially favorable, and you will borrow the cheap money. You will get a cheap money to do it. Even EA does this. I worked with EA. We were putting together a deal where they were taking bailout money from the banks in the last financial crisis that we had, and they were applying that cheap money towards games. Same thing with COVID money. They're applying that cheap money towards games. And what has been the cheapest money while interest rates were still low, a couple of years ago? It was ESG financing. And so they're going to take this money and they're going to put it into games.
So what ESG financing entails, Kern goes on to say, is that game studios have to agree to all kinds of conditions, including hiring companies like SBI to diversify their games. In other words, what's happening here is much bigger than SBI. It's about the companies that fund SBI. And that includes a fund called Baby Ghosts, which is also run by anti-white managers who are proud of their bigotry. It also includes...
Why do all these woke companies have such a shit tier names? Sweet Baby Inc. What's with them and babies? What's with these woke companies and babies? Am I crazy for this? Why do they all have baby in their name? What's with these companies and babies?
The biggest institutional investors on the planet, like Vanguard and BlackRock, which own a substantial portion of gaming companies like Microsoft. And these entities are creating the incentives. The only good news, as Kern points out later in that interview, is that ESG financing is drying up, in part because interest rates are changing and there's more exposure than ever to this propaganda, which makes it less effective. The U.S. government appears to be aware of that, and they view it as a potential problem. They want the propaganda to continue. And we know that because on its website, a nonprofit called Take This labels all criticism of SBI as harassment, and they're coordinating a response to it. What's Take This? Well, apparently, according to the website, they are a mental health nonprofit that's funded by the Department of Homeland Security. In other words, your tax dollars are paying for the defense of propagandists targeting children in the video game industry. For some reason, DHS is involved. And
see, he'll say things that I agree with that sound right, and then he'll say shit like that are targeting children. And then, God, single moms will watch this and then they'll think to themselves, oh my God, I can't let my kid play Mario Kart because if he does, he'll run over a family of 5. Like, oh my God. It's... Bro. Like, he'll have takes I completely agree with, and he'll say shit that I'm just like, okay, where are you getting this information from? Which is why it's hard to tell if I agree with him on all this or not, but for the most part, at least when it comes to the Sweet Baby Inc. thing and this whole Baby Ghost thing, and I agree with him. But like, oh my God.
Actually, it's worse than that. As The Intercept reported this month, quote, gaming companies are coordinating with the FBI and Department of Homeland Security to root out so-called domestic violent extremist content, according to a new government report. Noting that mechanisms have been established with social media companies to police extremism, the report recommends that the national security agencies establish new and similar processes with the vast gaming industry. So what this means is that the video game industry, without a lot of fanfare, has transformed into a tool of both propaganda and surveillance. It's an effective way to indoctrinate children precisely because it hasn't received much attention, and also because children spend, many of them, hundreds of hours a year, and that might be an undercount, a severe undercount, with this kind of content.
See, and this is something, okay, this is the issue that he's not talking about. How are these kids getting their hands on these video games? Because I'm not saying I'm not saying there aren't video games that are targeted towards children, but majority of video games are not targeted towards children. So if these kids are getting their hands on these games that are not targeted towards, that clearly are not targeted towards children, I don't care what you say. The developers of Suicide Squad didn't make this thinking they wanted 12-year-olds to play this. The people who play majority of people who play video games are 18 to 30 to 40-year-olds, right? That's the biggest demographic, because, and big shocker, the people who play video games, right? One of the most expensive hobbies. Actually, no, the video games are not long-term. Video games are not the most expensive hobby, but it's still an expensive hobby. Like, video games are a very expensive hobby, is done by people who have their own money to pay for said expensive hobby, right? If a 12-year-old is playing GTA, a game that is clearly R-rated, how the hell do you get his hands on that game? And usually It's the parents buying the game without even looking it up, or just parents just not looking what their kids are playing. And here's the thing, I don't even care if you know you let your kid play like GTA or Call of Duty. I don't even care, but you have to at least be aware of it. You have to at least be aware of it. If you're a parent, right, and you're just letting your kid play whatever video games they see, that's the equivalent of letting your kid like make any friends without at least asking who their friends are, right? Without at least asking who are they hanging out with, who are they talking to. That's like the equivalent. Like your kid goes out, makes a shit ton of friends, but you don't inquire about any other friends. I'm not saying you have to watch their every move, but like talk to them, be like, hey, you know, who are these people you're talking to? You know, how are they? Who are these people? Like that type of thing. And it's like, at the end of the day, if your 12-year-old kid is doing something that you yourself really don't like, that's on you as a parent, because you let them do it. Like you let them get their hands on it, so you have to react in the right way. So if you don't want your kid to play a game like GTA or Suicide Squad, look at the games that they're playing. The only person who can give them the video games that they want is you. They don't have the money to play those video games. So if they want to play a game that doesn't sound right, look it up. And if you don't want them playing that type of game, don't fucking buy it for them. Like, all the resources are there to tell you that this game is not meant for kids. You just don't use it. It's really that simple. Like, a kid is not like, we need to stop acting like a child playing Fortnite is gonna blow up a school. We need to stop with that shit. You know who does that shit? People with mental illness. That's who does that. People with mental illness.
So it should get a lot of our attention. And now finally that attention is here. And it's yet another reason to keep these games as far away from your children as possible. And if you do that, games journalists, literally the lowest form of journalists on the planet, will accuse you of harassment. And that's exactly how you'll know that you're doing the right thing. Thanks for checking out this video. If you'd like to listen to my
okay, a lot of takes in this video. I think it was like 60% disagree, 40% agree, mainly with the Sweet Baby Inc. thing and the whole baby ghost thing. These woke companies need to come up with different names. Holy shit! Like, what's up with them and babies? But like this whole protect your kids from video games thing. Like, bro, we need to stop acting like these kids are gonna fucking do a second 9/11 from playing Super Mario Bros. Like, it's not gonna. The answer is simple. If you don't want your kids playing a certain type of games, don't buy it for them, because you're the only one who has enough money to pay for these games. You're the one that these kids cannot go out and buy these games. They're gonna come to you to play these games. And if you don't want your kids to play certain type of games, don't play it with them. Don't buy it. You don't want your kids to play GTA, look it up. Don't buy it. Like, if they say, if your son comes up to you, right, and they say, hey dad, I want to play Elden Ring. You don't know what Elden Ring is. Yeah, well, there's this handy device called Google where you can just look it up and then see if it's a game that you want your kid playing or not. It's that simple. Oh my god. Anyway, a lot of takes in this. Mostly disagree, but there are some points I agree with, mainly about the whole indoctrination of kids. I don't know why he was going on about that indoctrination of kids. That was the take I disagree with the most, but because it's literally just doom posting. It's just scaring people to say, hey, if your kids play Fortnite, they're going to be a mass murderer. But you know, it is what it is. But I can understand why he's getting a lot of people are mainly gamers. I'd say probably a lot of single moms are probably watching this and being like, I told you so. I told you he shouldn't play Fortnite. But yeah, this is just a roller coaster of takes. But yeah.